But I didn't make this up. This was programmed anyway today. We're doing rebounding box jumps. I know, that's scary stuff. Not only are we doing it rebounding, we're doing unbroken sets of rebounding box jumps. I wanted to talk to you guys about this today because I'll often hear that this is an unsafe movement, or perhaps that it's for certain people, certain advanced athletes, but it's not for everybody. And I disagree with that entirely. Here's my thought process on all this. Follow me. I had to think of a couple of examples. First, if we were to say you're doing unbroken rebounding direction changes, or let's just call it agility, and we'll do that here: side shuffle, stop, change direction. We probably wouldn't have maybe the concern around something like this, unbroken rebounding box jumps. But I'm going to liken this jump that we're going to do to just changes in direction, because that's essentially what's happening. When I move into a position, create an extension through my joints and muscles, an eccentric contraction, my joints and muscles will lengthen. And then if I want to change direction, I'll have to pause at some point, stop the motion, in order to switch the direction of the momentum or the direction of the force, which would then require the concentric contraction. Agility training is essentially that, and it was very popular. I think it still is. It should be. It's something that we do all the time. I think of my daughter in soccer. She's playing indoor right now, so there's actually a perimeter for the court, where if the ball goes outside of the perimeter, now it's a loss of possession. So there's many instances in a game where kids are running literally to a sideline, and they're sprinting as fast as they can, and then they're going to have to stop themselves and pull an implement back, but basically stop themselves and or an object in order to then quickly switch directions with that ball and do something else with it. So it's something that I think we understand as agility, but what I'm saying is it's all the same. It's a sprint, a large amount of momentum and force going in one direction, and then we are going to stop that, which is the eccentric contraction, which slows those things down, followed by then, if you want to change direction and do something else, a concentric contraction in order to make that of value. Now that's in the sports setting, so then I had to think of one more. I'm like, okay, well, we talk about sports. You're like, well, I don't play sports. So this has no application in terms of me functioning in the regular world, and I know this one's going to get long. I apologize. I'm passionate about plyometrics and box jumping and rebounding. This happened to me the other day. This is funny for those of you that know me, embarrassing maybe for those of you that don't. I am dropping my daughter off, her son, actually at a volleyball practice recently. I pull into the parking stall that I'm in a busy parking lot, and I gather my coffee and my phone and my toque probably, and various things that I wanted to then take with me into the volleyball facility. And as I'm out of my car now, and just looking at how I'm going to get into the building, I realize out of the corner of my eye, there's a car backing towards me. I'm like, oh, so I'm thinking I should probably move. Then in a split second, I realized, wait a minute, I recognize that car. That's my car, except I'm not in it. So I had inadvertently, in gathering all of my things, parked my car without putting on the emergency brake. This is a manual transmission. And my car was rolling backwards towards me. Well, in real life now, I had a number of decisions I had to make. It's a small car, it hadn't gone very far, there wasn't a lot of momentum built up. But there was momentum. I looked behind me and saw what it was going to come to rest on, and I thought I should try to slow this down to some degree to try to minimize the damage that may ensue. So I got in front of my car and tried to slow it down. I was not able to stop it, but I had an eccentric contraction and force against me, and I slowed the car down as much as I could, and then I moved out of the way, and then it kind of bumped up against a parkade block. And that is an example of an incident where in the real world I took a large force and tried to absorb those forces in an eccentric contraction. I didn't then push the car away, which is kind of what we're talking about now. But if I had the ability to do that, I would have absorbed those forces and would have went, well, this is a stupid place for my car because I'm now in the middle of the parking lot, and I would have just pressed my car up to the place that it was originally in and then set the park brake. So there we go. Now, because this is this controversial sort of thing, how do we do these knowing that now in sport and in real life and in function, this is something that we should probably train? Well, here's how we can do this sort of stuff. So when we're doing rebounding box jumps, we'll set up sort of varying heights of boxes. So we just did it with plates here today. So literally, I can come to this first plate height and I can practice my rebounding. So I'm going to jump up. Now, when we talk about rebounding and our ability to create force, what we're going to focus on is the force required to absorb forces. So when I come off of this height, I have to absorb these forces of my momentum, my mass coming down and then landing on the ground. But I also want to absorb the forces and then change the direction quickly, just like in agility training. So I'm going to jump up, collect myself, lower myself off, and then try to jump right back up. The intent being, I'm going to minimize the ground contact time. If I do so, then I get to take advantage of these really cool anatomical, neurological, physiological mechanisms in my body. Golgi tendon organs, stretch reflex, things like that. They are things that in training will actually allow me over time to develop a more potent or more powerful, in this case, hip extension. Anyway, if I'm happy with that and that's working for me, I can try a greater height. Same sort of an idea. Am I quick off the ground and able to absorb those forces but then transfer that force into the ensuing concentric contraction and create some power out of this? Obviously, we can keep going. Some things to note when we're doing a given number of reps of this, because there is a difference, and maybe I'll cover this next week because I can see Rihanna's telling me I'm running out of time. There's metabolic box jumps where we're just trying to get work done. Maybe I'll do a couple here. I'm going to jump to the top of this box. Frankly, I don't really care how you get there. And I can step down or jump down, whatever works for me, but all I'm required to do is get to the top of the box, extend, situate my center of mass in this position, and then lower my center of mass back down here. And that's just work. So I could do 50 of these, 100 of these, 200 of these. If I don't have the ability to rebound these, well then I won't, because I'm just trying to get work done. Today, we were purposefully trying to rebound. So if this height is something you can't rebound to, then you don't do that. You go to the heights that do work. What I did note though, in today's class, because we're humans and we're smart and we find efficiency, is say I'm at a challenging height for myself and I can rebound these. So I'm gonna get up, I'm just gonna set myself up, I'm gonna lower and rebound, and that was a pretty poor jump. And I'll say that because I ended up in a fairly crouched position. I'm not saying we shouldn't crouch, but we should have the skill and ability to land on the ground, come off very quickly, and then rise to a fairly high vertical position on this box. I'll try a good one. There, something like that. When I get tired, what I'll end up doing though is I may preserve the ground contact time being minimal, which is good. But if I'm just lifting my hips to then capture myself on this height, I've actually lost the ability to create force off the ground. So that would look like this. I'm still going to be quick off the ground, but I'm not going to actually use it to apply force and raise my center of mass. I'm just going to catch low with knees up. It would look like this. Quick, but just catching myself. So you can see that the power that I then initiated off the floor has become reduced. So I don't want to do that in this case. So we actually had 20 reps today. If you can't continue to achieve a very similar height in the 20 reps, then you need to take that box down to the height where you're still finishing rep 19 and 20 at reasonable extension, meaning you had the ability to generate that force off the ground to get back to the height of the box. Last piece I'll mention on this is when we do rebounding box jumps, there is no time component, which is the other difference between metabolically trying to do work and focusing on the plyometric effects. So you jump up, you reset, you just get ready to get down and up for the next one. And if you take a few seconds in between the reps, that's okay. I'm not timing this set. I'm looking for quality of movement in ground contact and height achieved after the eccentric concentric contraction. That's all for today. Thanks guys. Talk to you later.